There we go. Welcome to Arise and
Shine
with Jeanette and
Sandy.
Yay!
Good morning, everybody.
Sandy's going to intro us.
How are you?
We're starting a new series.
Yes, we're starting a new series this week. So the series is going to be called Laying Up for Yourselves Treasures. And as we know, that correlates to, and sorry for the bad hair day, you guys. It's super humid over here. So we've got 80s here. But I digress. Anyway, it is on Matthew chapter 6. The whole series is going to cover 19 through 24. So we're going to be talking the first week, which is this week, about the two treasuries, which is heaven and earth. And then next week we'll be talking about the spiritual condition of man, which is the lamp of the body is the eye. And then in the third series, we'll be talking about the two masters. So just breaking that down for you. Today we're going to focus on Matthew 6, 19, and 20. So can we read that actually real quick? You want to go ahead and read, I've got it in the Bible if you want to, or I can start with 19 if you want to look up 20. So I'm just going to read that really quick here. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal." So it's a short verse, you guys, but it has lots of meanings. We'll go into that, and Jeanette's going to do 20.
Yep. And so Matthew 6:20 is but. So she's got the do not, and I got the do, and mine's the NIV. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. I think 21 is kind of important too.
Yes.
For
right.
where your treasure is, your heart will be also. And that's key for all these 3 points as we go into treasures from heaven.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Very exciting
Sandy.
one. Alrighty. So let me explain a little bit about the Greek, you guys. And I don't know if I'm saying it correctly right, but it's Thetsaritio, or Ritzateo, Thetsaritio. So what that basically means is treasuring up your treasuries, or I want to say stockpiling. And since I've got the do not lay up yourselves treasures on earth, what exactly are we talking about here? What exactly is the Bible talking about here? So make no mistake, it's about luxuries and it's about wealth. So it's absolutely physical things, and we can put a spiritual component to it, but right here in its context, it actually is talking about the physical. And it says where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. Now let's break down your luxuries or your wealth. And so with that Greek word, it's basically, you know, your necessities obviously is your covering, where you sleep, your food, things you need to live, and, you know, your normal life. But anything above and beyond that, we maybe can consider stockpiling, things that you might have 3 or 4 things of. And I know some of us like to buy things, and we could think of it like that, and store. You know, we have storages in our houses. We have storages you can buy and rent and put more things in it. So really, what if we want to translate that to today? We can say that we really are a society of things. So that's what the commentary I listened to, and I thought it was fascinating, and it's totally true. When I owned my home, I think I was a person of a lot more things than I am now. When I sold my home, I had literally 4 garage sales, one every weekend, just to clear out like 2/3 of my garage, and I still had stuff. So I totally do get that. And I really think it's no one's fault. It's kind of our society. It's kind of the way things are. We're a consumer society, which we really are.
And living in
That's the way we're
America.
built out. Yeah, we're living in America.
Where
Makes me think of that song.
compared to the rest of the world, we're rich.
Exactly.
Although we don't have people servants,
Right.
I've got a dishwasher.
Mm.
I've got a machine we have machines that do our servants.
Yes.
My laundry gets done, the drying gets done, right?
We've had AI so long ago, we don't even realize that.
Yep.
Yes.
And how many people have like
That's a
2
good
cars per
Right.
family?
2 cars per family.
Yeah, instead of just one sharing it, making
2,
it happen,
3
or
car
not even, or just
garages.
using public transportation, right?
Right. If we probably visited many, and those of you that have traveled the world know that we do live very prosperously here in America. And I think we forget that because we get caught up. You know, I remember my parents talking about, those of you that are a little older, talking about keeping with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. So that used to be a term that, you know, our parents would say, and it's basically just, you know, how many things can you acquire? Same thing that your neighbor has. You know, he might be mowing the lawn and he's got the coolest, newest BMW of lawnmowers, you know, and it's just, this is the kind of society we've become over the last 15 or 20 years. I think really no fault of our own. It's just, we are such a rich society, and so I just wanted us to all take a look at that. No matter how much you have, if you have somewhere to sleep at night, if you have food, the scriptures tell us that we're rich, basically. So each and every one of us here, if we have food and we have covering, we are really rich. So, okay. Now, let's see, other things you can find. Yeah, Dr. Seuss has a quote here. It's probably unrelated in his context, but I just thought it was cute. He says, "Oh, the things you can find if you don't stay behind." So maybe not quite keeping up with the Joneses, but maybe something every one of you can relate to Dr. Seuss. Exodus 20:17 tells us, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house," and it goes on to say, you know, basically any of their things in it. So we actually have permission from God to have things, but we just shouldn't probably stockpile them. You know, God recognizes, and we'll go into that. It's not a bad thing to have things, and we'll see in the scriptures that it tells us that actually we can get blessed, and that we are blessed for our obedience to God, actually, and where He will actually give us the ability to get more things. So it just really, it's man that twists it. You know, we just kind of get tunnel visioned, and you know, how many more things can we acquire? I'm going to go over also, let me set up the context for you a little bit, you guys. So Matthew 6:19 and 20, all of this is set up in the, think of the background though, this is at a time, so the scribes and the Pharisees, you know, they just kind of had it wrong all the way around. They wanted to look like they were super, you know, righteous, super cool. And so they had all these external things right. You know, they were tithing, they were tithing and worshiping and doing all these things, and they thought that they were the ones doing it right. And they had riches, and they wore it in their garments. So if you looked at them, you thought that they were righteous people just because of how they looked outwardly. But we know that God is more concerned with the matters of the heart, with the right matters of the heart. And these are things so we're just going to go over all of this. But this is how they were thinking. So this whole, everything is set up, the scriptures, Jesus was speaking basically, actually against this backdrop of how they were so righteous. And Jesus basically says, you know, there is none that's righteous. And if you want to get into my kingdom, you're going to have to do these things. And they really had nothing to do with all of the physical that we're talking about today. So that's why he talks about, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. Am I going over today the grain and gold and all that, right? I am going to talk about that, right? The grains and
because spiritual is next, and then two masters, is last. So go ahead.
How much time do I have?
Yeah, your luxuries as well. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're down 6 minutes.
I got 6 minutes to tell you this. Okay. So let me break up how people used to look at wealth back then in the biblical times. So in the Orient, actually, back in those times, people viewed wealth very differently. So the way we view wealth today is obviously we have paper money. They didn't have paper money back then. So they had what we call today, and it gets exchanged, but we have commodities. So these commodities that were very important to them back then, you guys, were one of them, one great one, and that still is today actually, is garments, is their garments. So we can see there's some scriptures, and I know I used to zoom right through those scriptures, but if we could go to Joshua 7:21 really quick. Joshua 7:21 says, "When I saw among the spoils a beautiful Babylonian garment, 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. And there they are, hidden in the earth in the midst of my tent with the silver under it."
And that was Achan, the sin
That's
of
correct,
the
yes.
when they lost to Ai the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
thank you.
the thing that happened there is he fessed up. He said, "I coveted. It was so beautiful. He wanted
I
it."
know,
So
yeah.
what he
That kind of
wanted
wraps it up, right?
was much more important than the whole and God's focus of the Hebrew nation going into the
Yeah.
promised land.
Yeah. So he was coveting, you guys. So I don't know if any of us can identify with that, but so those were garments. But if we think about in today's times, how many, we have we have designer clothes. And so there are people that do that think that what they wear, and I've always heard growing up that the way you can tell a rich man is by his shoes, actually. So if he has really well made shoes, that person must be rich, so these are indicators of wealth. But the interesting about garments, you guys, is what does 19 say? Where moths and rust corrode and destroy. That's the problem with garments. You may look that way, but it's nothing that's lasting. So that's the garments. Also back then was the grain. So you were wealthy if you were able to have lots of grain. Well, what's the problem with grain? Vermin comes in, mice, rats, the vermin, and they can eat the grain. So then you don't have your grain anymore. Okay, so
Or it's spoiled. If rats get in
Yeah.
it and they poop and pee on it and
Yeah.
they mess it up, that's nasty.
true, right. And then the third would be gold. So the actual wealth would have been gold back then. So that would be equivalent to the paper money. But we all know gold is super heavy. How can you imagine lugging that bag of gold, whatever, the gold around, the bars of gold, or however it was back then? It was probably just things of gold.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so where can you put that, you guys? You have to store it somewhere. And then you have to worry about someone coming to get it or steal it from you. So thieves. So now you have your thieves. So the point I'm getting at is that no matter how you can show your wealth, there is no way for security and protection for that wealth. So what the Bible's saying there is basically don't lay up for yourselves treasures, the luxuries, the wealth that where moths and rust can corrode. So even though we do it, we just need to be careful of those things. And we will go over the fact that it is okay. The Bible's rife with it, actually, about blessings, about people being blessed because of our obedience again. But this one's kind of a warning here. So 6:19. I'm probably not going to get to go over all of the verses that I want, but we could probably go over the verses after, but I'm going to actually turn it over to Jeanette now.
Okay.
Do you think I kind of caught everything, or you can kind of
You
add
got
in there?
a lot. Yeah, I can totally add it in
Okay,
there. I'm
awesome.
going to redo my timer and start. Okay, so I'm going to elaborate on what Sandy said, and I think it's interesting. Just something for you guys to note that. Jesus and the New Testament, and check me on this, there's only a few times, like maybe one or two in the Old Testament, where God is defined as Abba, is defined as Father. So Jesus, matter of fact, in let's see, chapters 5, the Sermon on the Mount, starts to create this relationship between God and people. calling God the Father. And in chapter 6, 10 or 12 times. In chapter 7, 7 times in the book of Matthew. So just saying Abba Father. So God's making things personal now. Jesus is making things personal now. So these treasures in heaven can be more relatable. So it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna do good and God's gonna see it. Yeah, because he's already defining, like Sandy said, he's defining what good looked like to them was what the Pharisees did. And it was all for show. It was all for show. So he was saying, no, don't even let people know about it. Because the Pharisees, when they fasted, they wouldn't comb their hair, they wouldn't brush their teeth, they had disheveled clothes. And so, oh, Mondays and, Thursdays, oh yeah, that's right, they're fasting. So they got all their credit. And Jesus says, they got their credit now. They're not going to get it in heaven. And so, going on with that, luxuries and necessities, bringing this more personal is what Jesus wanted to do. So how do you do this? How do you open your bank account in heaven? Mm-hmm. And so what does that look like? You become born again. You receive your salvation. That's how you start. Yes. And then
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Now what? You say, okay, so you spend your time in the Bible, reading the Bible, and then you'll find how much God really wanted that relationship. And then when Jesus comes, how he really shows that relationship, like I said, introducing God as Father, a more intimate relationship, right? A more of a connection, a God with flesh on, yeah. Right? Yeah. All right, and then I wanted to go into probably a speed bump for a lot of us is, it seems like the Bible is saying that the rich are bad and the way to do it is be poor. Well, you know what? In Proverbs 22:7, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. And that's less about rich and poor and more about how to handle your money. So today's society, we can have it with 3 quick, easy payments. We can have it right now, right now with credit. But you know what credit is? It's a nice way to say you're slave to your lender with interest, right? So you never get it for $19.99 with interest in 3 easy payments. That $19.99 turned into $37.52. So you end up paying more money. Yeah. So you really got to be a good steward of your money. That was the parable of the talents. The first guy got a lot of money and he made a lot of money out of it. The second guy, same thing, got a lot of money, made a lot of money. The other guy hid it. And guess what? Did he get more? No, because he didn't prove that he was a good steward. His money was given to the smart guy who was able to grow more. And guess what? Rich people are the ones who build wings to hospitals, who give to the poor. Do not crab at rich people. They because they're rich. Right. You know what? It's because they're good stewards of their money. They're smart and they know how to work the money. And time again, if you look at the lottery winners, where they win it real quick, they lose it real quick, or they die because they're so stressed out. When you build your money slowly and you have to work for it and you have to manage it, that's the thing. You've got to manage it. And that's why our life is like that too. We got to manage our life and relationship with God, bringing more of God in, right? Okay, I digress. I keep going.
No, it's very relevant, because the Bible's full of principles about and that's how our system's set up, right?
Right.
So we put our money away, like Jeanette's saying, and we're getting dividends, but that's biblical.
And if you want something, wait, get your money. When you have everything you need, then you pay for it. Don't fall to this, you have to have it right away. If you have to have it right away and you can't wait 2 weeks, well, what makes it different 2 weeks from now? Is it irrelevant? What?
I did learn that the hard way when I was young.
Yeah, same here. So I'm speaking from like, don't learn from my stupidity. All right. And then Sandy covered Exodus 20. You shall not steal is 15, and then 17, coveting the neighbor's house and stuff, female servants. And I love the do not. So, and Sandy explained it so well. The stuff on earth, it goes quickly. People can steal it. Moths can eat it. You know, our clothes, they just fall apart. And then what was the other one? Thieves, and moths and something.
The road, storm, yeah.
Yeah, and the grain can go bad. Yeah, stuff in the pantry has a shelf life, right?
Yeah. Should we talk about maybe what we should be laying up in heaven then?
Yeah, and so
start with that.
Let's go into that. So I'm going to go actually skip ahead to verse 22 and 23, where it talks about the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. And the verse 20.
And we'll really expound into that next week, you guys. We're just going to kind of cover over what we should be laying up.
Yep. And if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So what that is, the breakdown of the good eye and the bad eye. The good eye in Hebrew means generous. So generous. And the bad eye in Hebrew means stingy. And this is a good way that if we're managing our money right, what are we doing? We're giving into ministries. And this goes into Luke 16:19, where he says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. So that means when you go to heaven, somebody you don't even know is going to be like, hey, thank you. And you're going to be like, what? I don't even know you. And they're going to be like, you donated to such and such ministry or to missions group, and I got saved through so and so.
Wow.
And then see these people behind me.
Interest upon interest.
I told them about Jesus, and now these people are saved because you gave to this ministry, right? So and with that, really look into the ministries that you're giving to. Make sure it's not just to give them a really nice house. Yeah. All right. Make sure that it's going to spread the word of the gospel and give that love of Christ, right?
That's an awesome verse, you guys. If you really think about that, the one that Jeanette just did, the Luke 16:9, is that the one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because think of it this way. So think of it in the, if we think about, if we put away money, you guys, and you don't touch it for 10 years, right? And we all, I'm sure we've all heard, if you're older, that if you don't touch your money, and you just keep letting it build, eventually that interest that you get from that original money keeps building and building and building, and in the 10th year you have what they call exponential growth upon that interest, where it just explodes. And that's what we're talking about, that all of a sudden, you know, one day may be able to live off that interest and never have to touch your what we call the principal, right? So it's the same kind of thing, because we don't even, it's like, where did all that money come from then? And you don't even know because of something you did way back when. So that's the principle that Jeanette's talking about right here. Somebody coming up to you and going, I got that. Because of you, I'm here, or whatever. You know, I don't
That's
know.
really cool, huh? Yeah. And then with that, there's a warning in Psalms 23. And so with part of that coveting is when you know, if you go to a rich person's house, we watch lifestyles of the rich and famous, and you know, don't crave what they have. It looks good. Yeah, you know, what is the Kardashian girls look beautiful, right? But really, come on, do we really want that? I don't think so. No? And
we want it naturally.
Yeah, we want it naturally, and that's what God is saying later on. He talks about the lilies in the field, how beautiful God dresses them, right? And it's fleeting. How long does a flower last in your house, a live flower? It goes away and it ends up in the trash within a day or two, right? Maybe a week if you're lucky.
Yeah. So start to look at things like the physical, you guys, and the spiritual, what we're talking about.
Right.
They have the same amount of weight, but God tells us not to be concerned about those physical, natural things. Be concerned about the things that, you know, a moth can't get in there and take away the beauty of the lily of the field. Yeah. You know.
Which leads me to basically the principle of treasures in heaven. And it's the wrong attitude toward material things leads to a wrong attitude toward spiritual things. All right, and that's how I'm going to end mine. You've got 4 minutes to give us some more scripture here, if you'd like. Yeah.
For some reason last night. Okay, let's take 1 Timothy. So, you guys, in the book of John, since well, it's not the book of John. I'm sorry, but even in Matthew, so all these Jesus, right after the Beatitudes and all that. There's so many cross references, and I talked to Pastor about that. I thought it was crazy, but he said, no, that's how it was. So in these books in the Gospels. So bear with us as we go through that. So 1 Timothy 6:17 to 19 tells us, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. Let them do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share, storing up for themselves a good foundation for the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. So, aka external dividends, you guys. And I mean, eternal, not external.
I think of Abraham. Abraham, he was a great example, a super rich guy. And what does he do when he parts with his nephew? He lets his nephew pick. And of course, his nephew picks the best land, the green land. But he's like, I don't want any bad blood. You're going to have whatever you want because I know God's going to bless me. That's why Abraham was so awesome. And that's why God just kept blessing him, because his heart was in the right place. And whether or not God blessed him, Abraham would still be that same guy, and he would be happy with whatever he got. Right? That's the difference. He was rich no matter what because he was grateful, he was generous. And that he's a wonderful example of a rich man. And Job the same way.
There's the other rich man too, where Jesus said, sell everything, but then some people will take that verse and say, oh, okay, we're supposed to sell everything, and I guess I'm just going to be like homeless on the street. But that's not what Jesus was talking about. Jesus,
where his heart was.
Yeah, and Jesus spoke to him specifically because his richness was the thing that was standing between him and his faith in God. So for that man, it was true that Jesus was testing him. Would you be able to give it all up to follow me? But that is not so for everybody. So very different examples. And in fact, if you look at the gospel, I think John MacArthur was saying that God mentions money over 70 times throughout the gospels actually. So that's actually how important money is. And I know we just don't equivalate money with Christianity sometimes because we don't want to come off that way. But let's talk about real quickly with the few minutes we have. What are some ways, Jeanette, you think that we can build up things? So would you say maybe doing things in your church like, giving rides to people?
Right, it doesn't have
what
to
are the
cost
things?
money.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the money thing.
Service.
What are the
exactly
acts of service that are worth something?
Yeah,
everything has a value.
Even the little silly things. If somebody leaves their the stuff in church, back when we could go to church, if they left their bulletin or pick it up. Keep the church nice, cleaning.
To clean the
just
church.
wipe the counter. This is kind of a mom thing. Wipe the countertop where you wash your hands because water splashes. Do silly things like that. If something needs to be done, if a toilet's clogged, there's usually a plunger in there. Unclog it. Do it. You do it at home.
And
this is your church.
Your church either, right? It could be your neighbor next door who's elderly, who maybe can't get out to get groceries.
Checking on them.
Those are things that you're giving. You're storing
your time.
Yeah, your time. There's our time.
There's our time. Yeah, we got to finish it.
So we hope you guys are just, we're scratching the surface today. We're going to get more into it next week in verses 21 and 22, which talks about the lamp of the eye in the body and about the good and the bad again. So just
going
starting
to
think,
going more spiritual.
About the think about scales. These things weigh the same, but it's just we need to do what God asks us to do, not store up the things here, but to store up things in heaven.
Yeah.
Okay?
And when you think you need that new car, go visit the junkyard and see what happens to those new cars. And then you'll be like,
Yeah,
maybe I don't,
right, right,
it's
right.
going to end up there anyway,
Yeah.
right?
In fact, right, when a new car comes off the lot, it loses, I don't know, something like what, 30% of its
30%
value.
of its value just from driving it
Right
off the
off the
lot.
lot.
And then you're going to be like, man, I should have gotten that different color. And
Yeah.
you try to get it back in a different color. No,
Yeah.
you got to pay $15,000 more or $20,000 more.
So that's a good example, because you could take that difference. If you were planning on spending, let's say, $10,000 on that car, you don't buy it brand new, maybe buy it with 500 miles on it. It loses 30% of its value. You now can maybe only pay 7,000 for it. So take that 3,000 and invest it into ministry, possibly. Maybe that's a good example.
That's incredible.
I haven't done that yet.
Like a
personally.
business lady thinking it, right? Like a business lady.
Right.
And,
Just an idea.
Yeah, and for us as businesswomen, this is, getting our priorities and getting the money, because we do want to run a business and we do want to make it healthy, but we want to be able to be, good stewards with the money we have. And plus the businesses we
Speaking
work
from
on.
experience, though, I had to almost lose it all to learn that lesson, just to let
Yeah.
you guys know. I mean, I don't have a lot of material possessions actually anymore. I did used to, but now I know. Now I'm ready, God.
Yeah. Well, plus,
and then rain down all the blessings.
What we do, Sandy's in skincare, so how people look, and then I'm a personal trainer, group fitness trainer, how people, their fitness, and so that's a very worldly system we work in, and I know going to the gym, man, sometimes it's just like, wow, meat market.
Intentions. So we'll be talking about intentions next week, you
yeah.
guys. So we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the spiritual. Yeah.
Well, this was really fun.
Yep.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you Thursday morning. If you want to come talk with us about it more, we'll get into some questions and some just talks about it. So Thursday morning at occc.church, and you'll find the link to Zoom in with us at 7:30.
Right. Okay. Where is your treasure at?
Bye-bye.